Welcome to Constructive, a podcast about construction, technology, and whatever else comes up. Hope you enjoy. All right, welcome back to Constructive. I'm Seth, and today I've got Kyle Nitchen with me. He is a project manager, and as well as he's got an amazing newsletter and blog. And just one of the things about you, Kyle, that drew me to you is how prolific you seem. It seems like you read a ton of books. You're always writing a post. You're also have an everyday job too. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, that is true. A lot of that is true. Very into personal development, professional development, and I try and take as much as I learn and apply it to the career. Like you said, I work for a national construction management firm, senior project manager. I run operations for healthcare projects in Southern California. That is what I do during the day and what I love doing. And yeah, the newsletter kind of came out as a passion, like I said, out of personal and professional development. I was learning about these topics. Leadership was a big pillar of that, and figuring out how to, best manage a tough, complex construction project. So through that, I kind of also got into the space of, hey, I like talking about this, like writing about this, and I saw a need for that. No one was really talking about these things and applying it to project management or project leadership. And I said, hey, I could try writing about this. I could try speaking about this and sharing my ideas and my perspectives. And it kind of resonated and caught fire with a lot of people. And then I also, meanwhile, think just realizing, a lot of my experiences have been very challenging on projects. They're chaotic, they're sometimes painful. And when I started talking about these things, I realized a lot of other people resonate with this. And so when I started thinking about the mission behind the newsletter and kind of the purpose, as I kind of got more into it, I realized that, like 30% of these projects are pretty much like dumpster fires, and they don't go well. Or I'm sorry, 70% of those projects don't go well. 30% are really, considered successful. And I kind of made it my mission to kind of talk about project leadership and lean and operational excellence from a perspective to kind of flip that number. Hopefully maybe 70% can go well just through sharing knowledge, best practices, strategies, techniques, tools, technology. And yeah, that's how it kind of all started.
It's cool because that really aligns with me. My reasoning for this podcast is almost identical to that. My experience in construction has been, like you said, it's crazy industry, and so often it goes wrong. More often than going right, it's going wrong. And that's even just on an everyday, the life of a project. There are days that go great, but most of the days there's something that hits the fan. You know what I'm saying? But let's go back a little bit. You brought up a lot of stuff I want to get into about what's going on now, but go back a little bit to like the beginning days of why you thought you wanted to be in construction.
Yeah. Well, I wish I had a great story about that, but I think maybe a lot of people could relate to it. As a young man, 18 years old, like probably many others, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I wasn't one of those kids growing up that said, hey, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a professional football player. I didn't have a clear path. I had my head in a cloud, and I really wasn't a good student too. Formal education was challenging for me. And I had a hard time focusing. So I didn't get the best grades and stuff. But so when it came time to graduate high school, I was just freshly moved to a new area, moved around a lot as a kid. And I just really wanted to get to work. I just wanted to work. I had a background in hockey, so hard work and working on teams was really natural to me, and competitiveness was really natural to me. And I just wanted to work. So I found a job with a local landscaper working on a landscape construction site where we did landscaping houses and small commercial projects. And I did that for 2 years almost 3 years after high school. And that was like my exposure. And I didn't know where I wanted to take my life. I did eventually get my head together and say, you know what? Okay, I'm not going to do this in this specific thing for the rest of my life. And I don't want to work in this where I was living currently for the rest of my life. So I did manage to get my way into school. Again, not knowing what I wanted to do, I looked at all these degrees and I still was like, none of these really sound that great, but there's this one, construction management, kind of resonated with me. Because I had that prior history, and I don't have anyone in my family that was in the construction industry or anything, or, anything like that, but that resonated with me. And so I got that degree, with that 4-year degree. And from there, I got exposed to some general contractor construction management companies through networking events. And I got hired on for my first job with Layton Construction, who I actually still currently work with, is a wonderful company. And I took my first job as a project engineer in Miami Beach, Florida. Got moved there, and I started building a hotel and a performing arts center as a project engineer, not knowing really anything. And that was quite a crazy experience. Learned a lot. And I took off from there, and that was the start of it. And eventually I got into the healthcare side of business. I just started trying to figure out this whole construction management game and how I could help my team. That was always my focus. Like I said, I had a big team background. And I fell into the groove, and I started to really love what I do. And I found that my passion was really about leadership and leading people and taking a set of plans and turning it into this physical product. That process and leading the process is really what grabbed me. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't you think that construction of all the industries is the most or it needs to be, I don't know if it is, but it's the most team oriented. If you're going to succeed, it's going to be as a group. No one person can build a high rise by themselves, right? So I do agree with you that leadership is so important. Like, how did you know that was necessary as a skill as a PM?
Oh yeah, I always tell people construction is a team sport. And that is something I say a lot to folks. How did I tell it was leadership was just such a big piece of that? Because the amount of people involved and the amount of stuff that you're not actually doing. So your leadership is really just accomplishing a mission or a goal through other people and empowering other people through that process. And that's what construction management and really the whole business, a lot of business in general, is about. And so being able to take all these different people with all these different roles, designers, engineers, owners, reps, subcontractors, vendors, anyone in between, being able to tie all that communication together, the meeting systems, the planning systems, the financial systems, everything that goes into that, just that one project, the production. Leadership is like the one pillar in all that overlaps all of those systems. So it's key. And I realized that, like I said, I played 20 years of hockey, and I've played every rank and role on a team. So I've been the top leader, the captain, and I've been the bottom bench warmer guy. And so I've been anywhere in between. And so the dynamics of a team became really natural to me, and I was able to thrive in that environment.
Oh, in your experience, what have you seen is like the mark of good leadership as opposed to bad? You don't have to name names, but have you seen some really great examples of leadership that have influenced you?
Yeah. Really just the commonalities of great leadership is really a big outward focus on the team. So, you're really putting the team below your own personal or above your own personal needs. That is just like the one, foundation there. You're subordinating yourself and your needs and your emotions to the team, and you're giving more than you're taking in almost every interaction, almost every situation. You're figuring out a way how you could give. That is the true sign of a good leader with a lot of leadership potential. They're able to do that. They're comfortable doing that. They're not thinking about me. They're thinking about how I can support. How can I help this group? How can I help this person? What can I give? How can I help you? Humility. Those are great signs. And then also another few signs are embodying anything you want your team to behave like or to do, or really behavior wise, is you're embodying that. You're leading by example. I think with those two things, you have really good potential to lead and bring success for your team.
How do you balance humility and kind of the confidence that you need as a leader? Because obviously you can't just be quiet and humble, and like everybody else seems to really praise pride and a little bit of ego. But I agree with you that I think humility is necessary in order to be a good leader. How do you balance those two, though? Because you need a level of confidence, at least in your skills. We can get this done. I'm good at my job. Follow me. You have to have that. But what's the balance there?
Yeah, it is a balance. It's a dichotomy. There's a lot of things like that in leadership where you have to balance both those sides. It's just being aware of the situation. There's times where you just need to sit back and zip your mouth and just listen. And then there's times where you need to get in front of the group and say, no, this is how we're going to do it. We're going this way. But it's self-awareness, knowing first yourself and your intent. If your intent is to be arrogant again and pound your chest and make this about you, people will read that. But if your need to show confidence in order to help somebody else, in order to help the group move forward, that's different. People will be able to pick up on that. So your intent is really your driver there. Yeah, I'd say I hope that answers your question there.
It does. Yeah. So I feel like on a construction project, there's a team which is maybe your immediate team. Like if you're a GC, you've got you're a PM, you've got your project engineer, you got people above you, and then maybe you even have a crew if you're self-performing that's on your own team. But then you have subcontractors, you got owners' representatives, you got architects, engineers. How do you work in that bigger team in the sense that there's negotiation going on all those levels? You're negotiating with subs on their pricing. You've got the owner asking you about your pricing. Can you be selfless in all those relationships? Can you want to help your subcontractors? Can you want to help the architect? Or do you have to conflict with them at times?
Oh man, that's a good one. Yeah, I think you can help them at both times, and I think it's understanding your role. And if we're talking about the role of a construction manager or a general contractor, it's really understanding people's interests. Not really their positions per se. Their positions are clear about what they want or what they need, but understand their interests. Find win-win scenarios for the owner, for the subcontractor, for the architect. That is the goal. Generate as many options as you can with when you're negotiating, and try and remove the emotions out of it. So if we're talking about, negotiating change orders, um, you know, do your best to remove your emotions from the situation, because this can get a little tricky. Focus on people's interests and what they need out of this situation, and do your best to generate win-win solutions for everybody. If you're gonna, because really negotiation is really the art of mastering collaboration. It's collaborating. Yeah, I think that answers that, but
Yeah.
that's what
So
I've learned.
yeah, there's a lot. We're talking about conflict, but also just challenges in the job of a project manager or someone in construction. And I've just felt like I have to wake up in the morning and say, I know I'm going to face challenges, and get myself excited about it almost arbitrarily. Like I'm kind of conflict avoidant, to be honest, especially in my personal life. But I've realized that I just have to overcome that in the job and be like, I'm excited to get into this conflict and try to solve it, and I'm excited about the challenge because I just tell myself I'd rather be busy than bored. I don't want to be bored. So if challenges mean I don't have to be bored, then I'm going to embrace all those challenges. Do you find that to be a difficult thing too? And how have you do you have to talk yourself into just being excited to embrace a challenge?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I do have to do mental exercises like that to get myself ready. It just primes you for the day, because if your expectations are that you're not going to encounter challenges or have hard conversations, then you're going to feel let down a lot. You're going to feel, if your expectations are just pie in the sky, I don't really believe that's how life works, or what we do. I don't believe that's how it works. So yeah, when I have a hard conversation that I have to have, or a tough task or a challenge that's in front of me, I just kind of cue myself in the brain, okay, that is my cue to just go right into it. I got to go right into it. I can't overthink it. I can't just procrastinate around it, or it will just get more challenging. Things will just get more. So choose your hard. You either choose the hard that's right in front of you, or you delay it, try and avoid it, and then the things just get much harder. So yeah, that's how I think. Very similar like you. I got to get up. Okay, what challenges are we gonna fix today? What problems? And I kind of reframed it in my mind as, I don't want to avoid problems. I want to go find problems. I'm a problem finder and then a problem solver, but that's my job, and it's fun. I got to make it fun.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So a little bit more of an open-ended one, just in general. We're talking about issues in construction, but what do you like or dislike about our industry as a whole, just generally?
Oh, well, I love building things. I love building teams. I love looking at the end of the day, at the end of a project and saying, this was what we built. And more importantly, the best part of that is when you look back with your team and say, wow, we did that together. And remember all those hard things we went through, the bond you get with other people and your team going through hardship, going through challenges, is incredible. I mean, it reminds me just back, like all the hockey references I'm talking about, like going through a tough hockey season. The bond and how close you get as a group is just like irreplaceable. I don't know. It's the coolest thing in my mind. So yeah, teamwork, team bonding, all that. I love that aspect of what we do. I love looking back at the physical product and say, we did that as a team. I was a part of that. things about the industry that I don't really like and I hope to change, I would say kind of the systemic setup of it all is, I think we can improve upon it. Just it's, sometimes I feel like we're not, I feel like the system could be built better. We're not as siloed, and I think there would be better incentives for us to collaborate and work together and actually build the project in a more efficient way. Sometimes, the way we have to protect ourselves and manage risk, between the architect and between the construction manager, between the owner, it's very unproductive, and we lose sight sometimes of like, hey, aren't we here to build this project and do it like as efficiently and as low cost and as quickly as possible, so we can get you guys open and making money or serving patients or making the community better. I think that's the goal. So why can't we all align on that? Instead, we got to play risk management games sometimes, which I understand why it's really risky business, and contractors and everybody takes on a lot of risk. And, but I think I would like to improve that, I mean, you're shaking your head like you agree with me.
I do. Do you think that we can, like a ton, I agree with that. Do you think we can improve that at our level, or do we really need to educate the client and in sometimes public entities about, hey, at this point, most of the time, I'm just kind of trying to follow and comply with a contract and specifications and drawings, and I'm a little bit stuck in that box, and I'm like, how do we fix some of this stuff that just seems like administrative red tape that we've added arbitrarily to a project? To me, sometimes it feels a little bit over my head or out of my control. And sometimes it's about trying to get involved earlier in a project cycle and educate the design team about what we should be putting in these specs or the contract, and how do we make like real change in those ways?
Yeah. I don't know if I have the exact answer, but I think you touching on it, we do need to educate the clients, and we do need to, you touch on it, get involved earlier in the cycle. Everybody, for the whole team earlier in the cycle. And one example that's starting to come up is a different delivery method, integrated project delivery, IPD projects. I've never been on one, but I have studied them. But they are essentially a contract system where everyone's incentivized with shared savings goals and KPIs, hitting certain KPIs, and there's different incentives built into that contract, so people collaborate and operate differently with those incentives. I've never been on one, so I don't know how successful it is. I would love to be on one, but I do hear good things about it. And that's usually all client driven. But as an industry as a whole, I'm not exactly sure, because there's a lot of people that are in the system making money off the system that we currently have. So it would take a lot of rebuilding and restructuring to kind of throw away the P6 schedules or the Gantt charts and the lawyers and all the people that are kind of part of this risk management and paperwork game that we kind of play now. So yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but maybe if we put more emphasis and we see more successful case studies of these IPD type environments, maybe we can, make some improvement. And hey, and things like, that's why I'm doing things like the influential project manager, because I want to create and create awareness around these type of environments and these types of things that deliver better projects. I mean, in hopes that more people learn and want to catch on to it.
Yeah, the one that really gets to me is on public jobs when we're forced to award to the lowest bidder. It just feels, I understand the standpoint. It's we're using taxpayer money and we have an obligation to get the most affordable price for our taxpayer money. There's also like there's a part of it that's like you don't want public entities to be able to hire whoever they want because there could be corruption involved. So they're trying to avoid that as well. And I get why we would enforce a rule like that. I know the term is lowest responsible bidder, so there's a little bit of a leeway for a public entity to say that that bidder is not responsible. We've worked for them in the past. They can't estimate. But it just peeves me, like that feels like a really hard problem to solve because basically, I mean, not literally, but feels like an act of Congress would have to change that side of it. And I just feel like that leads to the most problems on public jobs that I've seen is we hired the guy with the lowest bid. He underestimated the job. He's obviously going to be ready for change orders the second they come up because he needs them in order to make a profit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about like some tangible, just everyday stuff. You and I have both dealt with it early in our career, and I'm hoping to stop dealing with it, but it will never stop, I don't think, is just managing the amount of emails we get. There's RFIs coming in all the time on the job. There's submittals, pay apps, subcontractor negotiations, all that stuff. Have you found some keys to kind of triaging all of that crazy amount of information that all seems to feel urgent sometimes on an everyday project?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is, the short answer to that, and I'll elaborate, is basically building out your systems. You need a strong set of systems on a project, and it's not all going to be you. It's going to be your team. I always say, and I stole a quote from James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. I applied it to projects. Your projects do not rise to the level of your goals. They fall to the level of your systems. So it's so true, because if you look at your goals, that's pretty much your P6 schedule of saying, hey, here's what we're going to do, by when, and who's going to do it. That if you stop there, which a lot of people do, you're going to go for a crash landing on your project. Really, the systems is what matter, and that's how you're going to achieve your goals. So regarding email, you're going to want to have a time management system of how you're triaging things. So I encourage, I do that myself, and I train my teams on how to do that. Processing.
Can we pause
things.
on email for a second? Because
Sure.
I hope it doesn't ruin your train of thought, but email I found to be such a huge aspect of the job. And there are times when I'm just like thinking about responding to an email and trying to figure out ways to kill two birds with one stone. Sometimes you can write an email that will solve multiple problems. Sometimes you think you're going to solve a problem and you create multiple problems with an email. So I just like, please elaborate on emailing and even just the wording that you use. Like, do you have you spent a lot of time thinking about how to write a good email?
Yes, I've spent a lot of time about that, thinking about that. So you got to understand, email is not what we do. A lot of people get stuck. I'm just doing email. We don't do email. We build things, right? We build things. Email is a tool for communication. So the only thing you should be using email for is a tool to communicate things. Now, preferably you should be having meetings and phone calls so that you're making sure that you're communicating with people, and then you're just following up with an email to confirm conversations or to answer quick questions. Like, that should really be what email's for. Or you might be doing it for just a big, larger report that you're just updating people statuses of things. But okay, how to write a good email. framework on that is lead with the answer. Okay. So very first thing you should be doing is making things as clear and concise as possible. There's a really good book called Smart Brevity, How to Say More with Less. That is the number one thing that should be your structure of your emails. People tend to write novels or start with a bunch of details and arguments, and then at the bottom of their email, they just say, okay, here's what we're going to do next, the answer. That's completely wrong. That's for like telling stories around a campfire with your family. You lead up all the drama, and then boom, at the very end, you hit them with the punchline. Not in business, not in construction. Answer right up front, right there. Dear Seth, here's what we're going to do tomorrow because of X, Y, and Z. And then if you want to support your argument, then you can list out some supporting arguments. And then if you want to go a little deeper than that, then you can put some factual data at the very bottom. People probably won't even read that far. Boom, answer right up front. Lead with the answer. That should be the thing you teach your PEs, APMs, even when you come talk to me and I'm in my office. Don't tell me a bunch of stories and facts. Come right to me with the answer right up front. And if I need to ask a question, I'll ask a follow-up question. So clear and concise communication is the oxygen for your project. So that's on emails. And then processing and batching emails, you want to batch things though. So if you need to do RFIs, batch your RFIs all at one time during the day. So if I'm going to do RFIs from 2 to 3 p.m. and that's that. Other than that, unless it's super like fire urgent, then you be doing it somewhere else. But if it's not, if it's just, important but not urgent, then you can batch it in your time block. So time blocking, key for time management. Deep work, managing yourself. You got to be doing deep work at least a couple hours a day. That's just deep thinking, deep planning, catching up on the things that are going to make lasting impact on your project. Big schedule updates, schedule review, walking the site. This is deep work that you need to be doing. And that's like, people are blocked out of that. So that's like where you're focusing on you and focusing on the future health of your project. So those are just a few things. Pay apps, managing subs, change orders. Again, batch it into your time block stuff so you're not getting bogged down. Context switching is brutal. It kills projects. If you're doing an RFI here, a change order here, and that's not lean. That's not efficient. You're going to accomplish, like at the end of the day, you're going to wonder, I didn't accomplish anything. Well, it's because you context switched all the time. You never got into the flow. You got to get yourself into the flow and keep yourself in the flow as much as you can in the day. And that goes for your team as well. Keep your team in the flow.
So I named the podcast Constructive, and my thinking behind that name is just kind of to be helpful. Obviously, we're building stuff too, so there's a little bit of a pun there, but I just find that even criticism, I think, is super important when it's constructive, and that term resonated with me in terms of I just want to see somebody else and try to help them on the job. Sometimes that's what it comes down to in my job. Sometimes somebody just needs to be listened to about something that's not work related in order to help them be a better worker on the job in that moment. So I'm just all about helping other people. What is your feeling on that?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That is key for, like what we talked about at the beginning, leadership, giving. You just want to give. You want to help. That's very influential. You'll be very influential when you're seen and known as the guy that wants to help and giver and expects nothing in return. So I love that.
I've noticed too that helping others tends to make me, there's something almost weirdly selfish about it. When I help other people, it helps me. A high tide raises all the boats. If I can help the people around me, it goes back to your points about leadership in terms of just if I help the people under me, I start to look better, you know?
Oh, it's 100% Seth. I'm glad you said that because it's a hack for career growth. It's a hack for uh, being fulfilled in your life. It's a hack for everything great. Whatever you give will come back to you. If you want to move up the ranks in your team, and you give, I always say, you want to hack for getting promoted. Go to your boss and say, "Hey, boss, what's the worst thing that you like doing in your job? And let me take it off your plate so I can do it for you." That is the quickest way to get promoted. I kid you not. Um, it's a hack. And yeah, it is kind of selfish, but I mean, in a weird way, it's selfish, but it's not because you're giving. The quickest way to anything is to give. So,
But that is
yeah,
counterintuitive, right? And also we're in an
yeah,
industry that's so competitive that we have this like innate, we got to compete with each other, even the other person at my own company. So it's hard to get your brain around that, right?
it's impossible. And us humans, we are not wired really to think like that. We are wired to think first in survival mode. We are wired to worry about our own little circles and our own little problems in our head. We're not going around, no one is walking around really thinking about other people, just generally speaking. They're worried about their problems in their head and they're thinking about themselves just naturally. And they're not bad people because of that. It's just, we're humans. We're wired like that. So if you can reverse the wire, gosh, you're going to be set up for greatness. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think it was pretty early in my life. I know this is a common phrase too, but I think my dad at one point, I was talking to him about a job I had, and I was just like, I don't know what this person thinks of me. I think they were thinking that I said this, and I was all like, what do other people think of me? And he was just like, nobody's thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves, you know, and they're wondering what you think about them. And it was just like, oh, that's true. Everybody is just in their head wondering how I look. Do I look cool to that person? Yeah. So it's freeing to remember that we're all doing that, and we don't need to overanalyze like, oh, that person said this to me. Does that mean that they don't like me? And I just kind of let go of some of that stuff when I heard that, and it's served me a lot. But I want to move, before we get out of here, I want to move into tech, because that's another big topic in my podcast. And I know you have opinions about technology and software even, but how do you think it's going to help us make these changes that we've been talking about? How do you think it might hinder us from some of those changes?
Yeah. Technology is a good one. Definitely is playing an important role in what we do. I love technology. I'm always on the hunt for good tools, and I do have a set of good tools that I share in my newsletter, my toolbox. So yeah, I mean, I love and value anything that brings people together, software that brings people together. Instead of the old static spreadsheets that are just that's the traditional way of managing budgets and schedules. So I still do some stuff on static spreadsheets, don't get me wrong. I think there's still value in them, but anytime you can hop on a platform that brings people together collaboratively, especially across the ecosystem of the project, the owner, the trade partners, your team internally, there's immense value on that. It makes collaboration a little bit easier. I'm using a lot of tools for like internal team meetings where we collaborate and look at Kanban boards and track tasks and responsibility and accountability on that. Doing a lot of collaborative digital pull planning. I love doing that. I love collaborative PM softwares. InSpilled is one that I'm partnered with and really support. So yeah, I think there's a lot of value on that. Procurement software, that's a really good one as well. I think anything that can add value to the value stream of the project and getting the information better, and actually, oh, here's a good one, bringing the data to your fingertips so you don't have to go and collect all this data. If you have the data at your fingertips, you become so much more influential. You can collect and analyze data and make really good decisions a lot quicker, solve problems a lot quicker. And that's what we need. And a lot of times we can identify problems before they happen because we have data that gives us leading indicators, like PPC, percent plan complete, roadblock removal stuff, your schedule quality, safety metrics. So yeah, I mean, all those things, bringing your data, giving you your data, and collaboration. Those are my favorite tools and favorite parts of technology.
Do you think there's also hardware that's going to become pretty influential in construction? I mean, like robots and drones, and obviously already to some extent that stuff is in the industry, but it's not everywhere yet. And it also feels like there's a lot of just value propositions about this stuff. What is my ROI? Is that, and also like, are robots going to take laborers' jobs? Because I think maybe in some cases a little bit, but I don't think in whole robots will be doing every labor job on a construction project.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think so, at least not for a while. But I am seeing, like, we are testing and we are using some robotics on some projects for laying out walls and stuff, laying out our walls, like the company Dusty Robotics. We've used them and it actually went really well. Came off right off the model, our BIM model, and laid out walls for us and laid out MEP, and like that was really cool. I'm seeing things like, robots that finish drywall and stuff. But again, it's like value proposition. What is the ROI on that? I don't think that part's quite clear, but that's on the tip of the spear. Like, the innovation is coming. It might be 10 years where we start seeing some robots on our job sites. But I don't think you're going to quite replace the foreman, the superintendent, the I don't know. I think we might be 3D printing a lot more things, concrete and walls and masonry. But again, I'm not too sure about, who's going to hang that ductwork up in the air and who's going to, put all that electrical in the wall and shut down the electrical panels and, all these things that we do. So I think it will be like an assist. We will get some assistance from robotics, but not necessarily replace people. It's just my guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, so BIM modeling is one too, but like also reality capture, do you think are you deep into that, like using a drone to track progress on a site at the very least, or?
Using 360 cameras, walking around, tracking progress, taking photos.
And how close, like, I haven't done quite enough of it to really get a gauge for this, but how close are we getting to where that stuff creates basically as good of an as-built as an architect or engineer could if they drew it? I mean, can we make an as-built already from just a 360 camera, and is it all just as valuable as having an engineer and architect on that?
An as-built, I haven't done the as-built, but what I have done is, I don't know if it can like take a photo, reality capture a room and then put a print together about the as-built of the room. I haven't quite seen that yet. But what I have seen and done is take a photo of the progress that's been installed, 360 reality capture, and then it's reviewed that data, compared it to my BIM model, and told me how much percent complete or what I'm missing according to my schedule. I've done that, and that's been pretty good because it gives you a lot of data. It tells you what's missing. It tells you what's deficient or different from the BIM model, and it spotlights all these things that maybe would take hours to go do it manually and be very tedious, which it's done it in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, it's just something I keep thinking about. The future I'm hoping for is one where I don't want to get rid of architects and engineers in terms of at the end of the project, but I'm just hoping that there's a way where if we reality capture the entire project, in my imagination, that could turn into a 3D model at the end of the project that's literally like every piece of conduit is in this 3D model exactly where it actually exists in reality, and every wall is, so you have a 3D model that's basically represents exactly what is built.
Yeah. I would say that's pretty close to being done. That's got to be in the works. Maybe that's already can be done. I don't know, but I think we're going to be there soon. It feels close to
me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about that too, because I just feel like so many of the projects I go on, some of it, if it's a renovation at all, even new construction to some extent, you don't know what's under the ground. But a renovation in particular, I run into this all the time, just like we don't know what it's going to cost till we open up that wall. And that's just a frustrating thing to me, where it eliminates a lot of predictability when nobody really knows what's in that building or under that building, under the ground. So that's kind of something I'm hoping for.
Yeah, that would be awesome for planning projects.
Anything else how can people get a hold of you? What, obviously Influential PM, is your newsletter, and what else do you want to plug for people?
Yeah. I think, just would be cool if, you can reach me on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, Kyle Nitchen. That's where I post daily about things of leadership, lean construction, project management. So join the discussion there. And then you can also find through my profile there, my newsletter, The Influential Project Manager, which talk about the same topics but go deeper. Every Tuesday, I send out one essay of a best practice, an article, strategy, tool, something to help you lead people and predict outcomes. So that's where you connect with me, and I hope to talk with you and meet you more.
I've been I appreciate you. This has been fun. Now I feel like we're friends. I'm gonna be reaching out to you as well. But thanks for coming on, Kyle.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, Seth.